Okay, hello everyone. I'm Lindsay Tyler, and I work at CELA, the Centre for Equitable Library Access in Canada. I'm going to be talking to you today about a research project that we undertook over the last year or so on the accessibility of commercial audiobooks. And I shouldn't go any further before I acknowledge that the project was funded by the Government of Canada and Accessibility Standards Canada. So in an international and not very Canadian audience, I'll give you a bit of context. So the Centre for Equitable Library Access, or CELA, is a library for people with print disabilities. We serve the entire country of Canada. We're a bit like the NOTA or the Dedicon of Canada. So like the country we serve, our collections and services are bilingual in French and English. And we offer books in alternate formats, so DAISY audio, Braille, and accessible EPUB. And we work under the exemption in the Copyright Act in Canada that permits us to do so. And I think my colleagues at other libraries for people with disabilities work under similar copyright exemptions. And we exchange materials under the Marrakesh Treaty. In terms of accessible publishing in Canada, we've heard lots about I guess maybe the stick that you have here in Europe, the form of the EAA. We don't, colleagues here from Canada could probably speak to this more, the impact of that legislation on Canadian publishers. But what's more relevant to me at CELA is that for 5 years, from 2019 to 2024, there was funding that was provided by the Government of Canada through a program called the Accessible Books Fund. And this money supported publishers and publisher organizations primarily to produce accessible digital books and also to, I think, increase capacity and training in the sector to rise to meet a greater standard of accessibility in publishing and improve and move towards a born accessible publishing model. So in this context, CELA collaborates with publishers on born accessible publishing, and we seek to align our work in the alternate format space with these initiatives and research. So moving now to the project itself that I'm here to discuss. We undertook this project for a number of reasons. First of all, you might ask yourself, accessibility of audiobooks, aren't they accessible already? Isn't that the point of an audiobook? And so I think this is a common perhaps assumption that people make, that audiobooks are by definition or inherently accessible. But we wanted to question that, or at least we had observed ourselves from our own experience and from the comments of readers that in fact there is a wide variation in the way that audiobooks are produced and the results in the reader experience. Particularly for those readers who rely on audiobooks as their primary or only form of reading. So we took those observations and comments, and maybe I'll just underline again that for us at CELA, audiobooks are our bread and butter. They are many, maybe most of our readers' primary or sole form of access to reading. And so for us, audiobooks are books, and we take them very seriously. And so that was sort of the perspective that this project took. And yet at the same time, audiobooks have not benefited from the same kinds of approaches to standards and accessibility standards, particularly that ebooks have rightfully benefited from. So we observed this gap between the very laudable levels of standardization in EPUB and the Wild West, I think someone in our consultations called it, situation with commercial audiobooks. And lastly, we shared this project idea with a number of partners, publishers, publishing organizations that support publishers, audiobook producers in Canada, and had support and interest. So we submitted the project with their support, and were able to get funding. So the project was done over 1 year, so it was a pretty tight timeline for what we were trying to do. This was the process that we undertook. We began with user consultations in the spring of 2024, so we worked with a somewhat small number of readers who have a print disability and gathered from them some insights on their experiences with commercial audiobooks, where they found barriers, and then took that information as sort of a baseline into the summer, where we did industry consultations and engagement, and did a landscape review, including literature on audiobook and accessibility. A number of folks in the room were involved in those. That was very helpful. So from that landscape review, we were able to establish a better understanding, for sure, of the challenges that publishers and producers face in audiobooks, both in terms of knowing how to make them, as well as financial and market constraints or concerns, and also the accessibility features that we might want to look at more closely in the next phase of the project, which is really the heart of what we were trying to do. So I should mention as well, the project was bilingual. We did all the work in both French and English. So we kind of cobbled together a set of audiobooks in both languages that reflected each of the features that we wanted our participants to test. Things like image descriptions, cover image descriptions, placement of footnotes, sound effects, and then we recruited participants, and they tested the material, so listened to them and answered a very detailed survey that gave us both qualitative and quantitative information about their experience, held a couple focus groups, and then we had a mountain of data, which we analyzed, wrote up a research report, and then have been presenting about it. So a little bit more detail on the user testing phase. So we had 55 participants. Half of them identified as having a print disability. We included people with a variety of print disabilities, so people with visual disabilities, learning disabilities like dyslexia, and physical disabilities, which make it difficult to hold a book and turn pages. So at least for our Copyright Act in Canada, those are the people who qualify to use CELA services and who we would consider to have a print disability. And then the other half of the participants did not identify as having a disability at all. At CELA, we never work with people without disabilities, so but we were able to recruit a good number of people. And in fact, we had to select participants from among a much larger group of interested people. 25% of the participants were Francophone, and the remaining were Anglophone. I would like to say that it's a small sample size. That was done intentionally because we used a mixed methods approach with qualitative and quantitative data. We had very rich data, and to manage that on the scale of time that we had available to us, we needed to keep the group fairly small. So we can't overgeneralize about our results. However, I think that they point to interesting insights about the way that people use audiobooks and what they need in audiobooks, and how audiobooks can be a more robust and effective format. So the features that we selected, we looked at the treatment of front and back matter in audiobooks, particularly the placement. Sometimes we move in audiobooks front matters moved to the back so that you kind of cut to the chase. So we asked about placement of front and back matter, narrated table of contents, footnotes, and the placement of footnotes, synthetic and human narrative bibliography. So bibliography is content that's kind of dry to narrate and listen to potentially, but for us, looking at and how we handle that in an audiobook, and acceptance of synthetic narration, book cover image descriptions in general and how they're placed in the text, and music and sound effects. And again, we asked questions about their experience with audiobooks and more generally. So the insights that we gained from this, I'll say that we have, again, a lot of data, and I could probably talk for all afternoon about everything that we could, all the results that we had. So this is a very tight version of that. But I think if you retain anything from what I say today, I would say that our results generally supported the notion of born accessible audiobooks. Between our participants with and without print disabilities, there were very few differences in their preferences and needs with respect to those features that I discussed. When it comes to reading an audiobook, what is not important is whether we have a disability or not. What is important is the context in which we're doing the reading, and maybe the purpose of our reading, what we're doing at the time while we're reading. So, for example, in the image description feature that we tested, we found that overall we had quite strong support for the inclusion of image descriptions in commercial audiobooks. And the difference, people did not express it that the results did not vary based on disability status. When we looked more at our qualitative data, the differences were more about what am I doing at the time that I'm reading the audiobook? Do I have access to a print, or am I like driving or walking the dog and I can't consult supplemental material or something like that? So that for that reason, people have said that they need access to the images at the time that they're reading in the form of an image description. However, there was a lot of variation in the responses too. And because the need for these features is very contextual and varies a lot according to the situation that you're in and what you're trying to do, and also your accessibility needs, for sure, we need customizable, that's our conclusion, is that we need customizable features. So the ability to turn off and on image descriptions in an audiobook too, so that people can set up the book the way, the features that they require. Our work, again, just given time constraints, we focused on the books themselves rather than the reading systems in which they're consumed. But without question, the reading systems are a crucial part of the experience of reading an audiobook or any book. And so for this to work, clearly platforms need to cater to different technical abilities, accessibility needs, and then support this kind of customization and user preferences. Another observation that we made is that audiobooks are not only for leisure reading. I think another misconception, particularly among readers with print disabilities, of course. For them, they had higher rates of using audiobooks for educational and professional purposes. But even among our participants without a disability, about 36% of them indicated that they read audiobooks for professional or educational purposes. And for that to work, we need to have robust audiobooks that support that level of engagement. So again, that's an argument, I think, for born accessible audiobooks that meet the wide range of user needs, and to have those available commercially to everyone, rather than making very basic audiobooks for the general population, and then people like CELA making really fancy ones. A small number, highly accessible audiobooks for the qualifying population only. We had asked, this is sort of more fun maybe, but we asked about some ideal audiobooks experiences, and these are the top 5 that people selected. So the first was searching in audiobooks. So people would like to be able to search for a keyword and then go to that passage where the keyword is used. They would like to be able to customize background sounds and music. Number 3 was a big theme throughout our research project, the relationship between the text or an ebook and the audio. Users would like to sync between audio and text formats. So to have the integration of audio and text probably in a single book, a single format that allows them to switch back and forth or view the text and listen to the audio at the same time. We heard a lot about the technical and legal challenges that this implies, but nonetheless, that's what people want. Some of these are sort of exist already on the marketplace to a more significant extent, like voice commands. That's fairly doable in some systems now. And customizable voices as well, and this is maybe calls back to some of the discussion yesterday, where people would like to be able to modify a narrator's voice, adjust the tone, or even select different narrators for the book. Part of the project and our goals was to make some recommendations, and we have sort of 2 levels of recommendations. The first are short-term recommendations. So in Canada, I have colleagues here today from eBound. They have created a website that's really an excellent resource on accessible publishing called the APLN, or Accessible Publishing Learning Network. And they've produced lots of guidance on audiobook production, and our results confirmed or support the guidance that they provide on audiobook production. And that's assuming sort of a status quo in terms of formats and standards. However, over the longer term, we concluded that what would be required to truly achieve born accessible audiobooks is development and implementation of standards that will let people create well-structured, navigable, customizable audiobooks with full access to the content of the book in the audio format. If you're interested in more information, we have the research report as well as recordings of a longer webinar that we did on our results at our website, and the report is available in both languages as well, so if you toggle to the French, you'll get the French versions. Thank you.